Happy New Year po sa inyong lahat. Sana po ay naging safe ang ating pag-celebrate ng ating New Year. Sa episode na ito, nais ko pong balikan ang 2020 sa pamamagitan ng pagsiyasat kung alin sa mga stocks sa Philippine Stock Exchange Index na nagbigay ng pinakamataas na dividendo noong nakaraang taon. Maaring ang karamihan sa inyo ay bago pa lamang sa stock market o kahit matagal na kayong investor, ang impormasyong tungkol sa kung anong mga stocks sa index ang nagbibigay ng mataas na dividendo o cash dividends ay isang mahalagang bagay sa inyong pagdesisyon sa pag-invest sa stock market. Kung nais ninyong malaman ang mga stocks na ito, samahan ninyo ako at ating tignan kung alin sa mga stocks na ito ang nagbigay ng magandang dividendo sa ating special New Year's episode na ito na may pamagat na The 10 Highest Dividend-Paying PSE Index Stocks in 2020. Dito lamang sa The Stock Market Today. Pakipost lang po para mabasa po ninyo ang ating reminders at disclaimers and then tayo po ay magpapatuloy. This presentation on dividend-paying stocks is just a guide. You have to do your own research before you buy the stocks since investing in the stock market is a risky activity. Stock prices are volatile and your investment can be easily wiped out. Marami pong salamat. Sa episode 4, I discussed the characteristics of index stocks. If you are a new investor and you don't know which stocks to buy, you can start with the index stocks. The PSE index is composed of 30 companies which passed the criteria of the PSE to be index stocks. They have to be sufficiently capitalized, passed the free float requirement, and is liquid, or the stock can be sold anytime. These 30 companies which comprises the index are stable companies, and most of them are blue chip companies. Finally, most of these companies give regular dividends. So if you are new to the stock market and you do not know which stock to buy, I have compiled the 10 index stocks which give the highest dividend rates during 2020. Before I proceed, may I just briefly explain the columns which you will see in the succeeding slides. The third column is the price per share, which is the closing price of the stock as of December 29, 2020. The fourth column is the cash dividends per share, which is the total cash dividends declared by the company during 2020, and this includes regular and special dividends. The fifth column is the dividend rate, which is computed as the cash dividends divided by the price expressed in percentage. The dividend rate approximates the interest rate per annum of a bank product or bond. The last column is the dividend rate net of tax, which is the dividend rate minus the tax rate. So the dividend rate is actually the rate multiplied by 1 minus the tax rate. So if your tax rate is 10%, you multiply the dividend rate by 100 minus 10% or 90% to get the dividend rate net of tax. As a benchmark, I use the fixed rate bonds issued by corporations from October to December 2020, which is taken from the Philippine Dealing System website, and these are averaged. We have bonds maturing in 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years time. The rates of these bonds net of taxes are 2.38% for the 2 years, 2.52% for the 3 years, and 2.92% for the 5 years. Please note that the tax rate for bonds is 20%, and this is higher than the cash dividend, which is just 10%. So in other words, you get more money from dividend income than from income from bonds or other fixed income securities. So now let's take a look at the 10 stocks in the index which gave the highest cash dividends in 2020. Let's start with number 10. And number 10 is Metro Pacific, MPI, which had a closing price of 428 and gave 11.05 centavos dividends in 2020, which translates to a dividend rate of 2.58% and net of tax it's 2.32%. So it is comparable to the 2-year bond rate of 2.38%, but the 3 and 5 years rates are higher. Number 9, we have ICT, or International Container Terminals, the company of Mr. Razon, which had a closing price of 123.50. Cash dividends declared was 3.31 centavos per share, which translates to a dividend rate of 2.68% or 2.41% net of tax. So this rate is comparable to the 2 to 3 year bonds. Next, we have at number 8, AEV, or Aboitiz Equities Ventures, which had a closing price of 47.25. Dividends declared is 1 peso and 30 centavos, which translates to a dividend rate of 2.75% or net of tax of 2.48, which approximates the 3-year fixed rate bonds. By the way, yung fixed rate bonds kasi is what the yield or the earnings that you will get for 3 years. Fixed po yan. Yan yung 2.52 net of tax. Whereas what you get for the stocks, for example, in 2020 is just for the year. That's 2.48% for AEV. So next, we have at number 7, Bloomberry, which had a price per share of 8.11, and on the right column, the dividend rate net of tax translates to 2.77%. So this rate now is between the 3-year and the 5-year rate, and higher than the 2-year rate. Number 6, we have Meralco, which had a dividend rate of 3.20%, which is now higher than any of our benchmarks by, let's see, 30 basis points, more or less 30 basis points or 28 basis points. So Meralco is a power company and is under the Metro Pacific Group. You'll notice MPI is number 10 and Meralco is number 6. Now, in my portfolio, I have Meralco as a long-term investment. I also have Meralco as a short-term investment, but this is just for trading. Pero yung long-term ko is for dividends, because Meralco gives very good dividends, and this is one of them. No, it's in the top 10. 3.20% is not a bad rate compared to the benchmark of 2.92 5-year bond. Number 5, we have LTG, or the Lushutan Group, which have a dividend rate of 3.64%, which also beats our benchmark. So it's at a closing price of 13.10 and gave cash dividends of 53 centavos during the year. Number 4 is Aboitiz Power, which had a closing price of 26.55, gave cash dividends of 1 peso and 18 centavos per share, translates to a dividend rate of 4.44%, or a net dividend of 4%. Now we will go to the top 3. Number 3, what's your guess? You can't go wrong because it is a telco company, Glow, which had a closing price of 20.30, gave cash dividends of 107.99 per share during the year 2020. The dividend rate is 5.32%, and the dividend rate net of tax is 4.79%. Sino number 2? Ano po yung guess nyo? Of course, who can go wrong with PLDT, di ba? PLDT and Globe were probably yung revenues nila in 2020 is surging. So TEL is number 2 with a net dividend rate of 5.17% because they gave out cash dividends of 77 pesos per share during the year. And it entirely beats all the benchmark bonds that we have. Number 1, what is your guess? It's a power, real estate, and okay, ito na nga yan, DMC, mining company. Okay, DMC is number 1, which gave a 48 centavo dividends in 2020. And you divide that by the price per share at 5.66, you get 8.48%. Net of that is 7.63. I also have DMC among my long-term investments, or yung investment among my investment portfolio. So number one is DMC at 7.63%. So now if you want passive income, your objective in 2021 is ayoko na mag-isip. Gusto ko, kabig na lang ako ng kabig ng pera. Ito yun, no? Yung, at least in top 5, you have to consider that. Of course, 2021 is another matter because you will have to compute considering that the rates now are lower probably because of the pandemic, no? Bumaba yung kanilang presyo. Okay? So, if you want passive income and these are the stocks which you can consider buying. And if you are a long-term investor, these are the stocks you can consider also investing because of the steady stream of dividends. Now to summarize, we have MPI at number 10 at 2.32%. Number 9 is ICT at 2.41. I am just reading the rightmost column, dividend rate net of tax. Number 8 is AEV with 2.48%. Number 7 is Bloom at 2.77. Number 6 is MER at 3.20. Number 5 is LTG at 3.64. Number 4 is AP at 4%. Number 3 is Glow at 4.79. Number 2 is Tel at 5.17. And number 1 is DMC at 7.63%. And if you'll notice, from number 6 to number 1, it all beat the benchmark corporate bonds rates that was just recently issued in the last quarter of 2020. I hope you learned something on this episode. Remember, index stocks are the most stable and reliable stocks in the PSE, and these stocks that I have shared with you are the stocks which gave the highest dividends in 2020. If one of your goals is to have passive income, this information may be useful to you, whether you are a new investor or a long-time investor. I hope that the information that I have shared will be useful as you continue your journey of investing in the Philippine stock market. Ito po si Benji Chidoro, bumabati ng manigong bagong taon sa inyong lahat at pagpalain nawa kayo ng Diyos. Salamat po sa inyong pagtangkilik sa aking channel. Naway ang 2021 ay maging mapagpala at masagana sa ating lahat. Marami pong salamat.